On this week's Eastern Conference edition of Locked On NHL, last night the Florida Panthers raised their 2024 Stanley Cup banner and then proceeded to put a beatdown on the Boston Bruins. We'll get into night one of NHL recap in North America, and then Linus Ullmark has re-signed with the Ottawa Senators. That and more on this week's Eastern Conference edition of Locked On NHL.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back. It's another edition of Locked On NHL, your team every day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Ottawa Senators. With me, as always, from the Battle of Ontario, it's Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. It's a great time of year for that, right? Home openers across the league. Why not take $20 and put it into the concessions? That's what I do over at Game Time. Today is Wednesday, October 9th, and Mikey, as much as I want to lead the show with Linus Ullmark, I do think we have to pay some proper respect, because the Florida Panthers not only got their rings on Monday, but they raised the banner Tuesday, and then they showed that there's no such thing in their minds as a Stanley Cup hangover.
They look like they're going to be a wagon again this year, don't they? Like right from the get-go, put up a 4 spot on the Boston Bruins in night one. That place was buzzing. The boys were buzzing. Florida, yeah, it's gonna be another big year for them, I think. And I don't like Jeremy Swayman. I mean, this was obviously floated out there by anyone with a Twitter account last night. But imagine if Swayman hadn't signed the extension and he was still up there in the press box, waiting, just watching the game, seeing how things unfolded. He would have got a call about midway through the second period with an offer at roughly $10 million per year. He should have held out a couple more days.
Yeah, very interesting how that all worked out. So Joonas Korpisalo plays, and frankly, for the first 7 minutes of the game, he was peppered and he looked good. Like he was kicking him out. Yeah. And look, as much as I like to joke, Joonas Korpisalo last year, he led in 4 or more goals in 29 of his 50 games with the Ottawa Senators. So he got that. No, it's not good. But I took advantage on it over at FanDuel. I put the race to 4 goals, put Florida. Now, did I expect them to get it in the first period? No, but they did, and they looked phenomenal. I think this is more of a statement by the Florida Panthers than it is an indictment on the Boston Bruins. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it is. Like, Korpisalo's not their number one, so let's wait until Swayman gets in there and see how things look, and I think then we'll be able to judge. However, I mean, that is an aging group out there in Boston, and what they brought in is not necessarily youth. They brought in a Zadorov, they brought in a Lindholm. Like they got older too. Let's not forget. So there are going to be some question marks with the Boston Bruins. We'll see if they're up to the task here. But to your point, yeah, I think this is more giving flowers to the Florida Panthers, who looked good last night. Like they look like the Florida Panthers too. Like Sam Bennett was in the mix. He was mucking things up. You had Matt Tkachuk being an absolute pest. You had Verhaeghe sniping. Like it looked like the Florida Panthers that won a Stanley Cup, and they're just rolling it over into the next year. It's like, no, this isn't game 1 of 82. We're just continuing. And we're just going to go out there and we're going to play our brand, play our hockey, and score a bunch of goals and be pests while doing it. Bobrovsky made a couple big stops, a couple of late goals, made it look like he, had a worse night than he did. But overall, yeah, man, Florida, they're truly, they believe that they have a good opportunity to defend the title, and they're showing right from night one, hey, we're here to defend this thing, and we're going to do it to the best of our abilities.
And it's becoming a bit of a trend now. This is the 3rd straight year that the Stanley Cup champs have put on a clinic in the opener when they raised the banner. Last year, Vegas got a convincing 4-1 win over Seattle. The year before, Colorado put a 5-2 beatdown over the Chicago Blackhawks. So last night, 6-4, the final score. The Bruins scored twice late in the 3rd period, but this was an absolute clinic. We obviously hope that Adam Bachfest is all right. Scary moment where he takes a puck off the face. Did not return. A lot of talk there. He was a buyout guy in Columbus, and then he goes down there. He was on the first power play unit, so we hope that Adam Bachfest is okay. Another note right after the game, just to keep the good vibes rolling, Carter Verhaeghe signs an 8-year contract extension at an annual average of $7 million. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he could have made a lot more on the open market, just like Sam Reinhart, which speaks to a bit of the culture that they're building. Do you disagree with that?
Well, culture, no tax state, whatever you want to call it. He's going to be taking home a lot of money. And look, it's a team that believes that they're good and they want to stay together as long as they can, right? It's a Stanley Cup winning formula. It's a Stanley Cup winning group. So at this point, it's not about padding their bank accounts, I guess. It's how many more can we win? And I think you look at, a lot of people starting to leave a little bit of money on the table. Yeah, I guess you could say it's a culture thing. Some critics will probably be like, well, no tax state, they can take less. Like, there's no way that the Leafs could possibly, or the Senators could possibly get a guy for $7 million because of what the actual difference in take-home pay is. But, like, put the money aside. It's just a great story. Like, Carter Verhaeghe, third-round pick, bounced around a couple of teams, played in the ECHL, a couple of years in the AHL, was cut from the Tampa Bay Lightning after winning a Stanley Cup in 2020, was not re-signed, ends up in Florida, and it's just been a match made in heaven. He's been unbelievable, a massive part of that team. A couple of years ago, scored 42 goals, 34 last year, and was a big-time catalyst, 21 points in 24 games in their Stanley Cup run last season. And for him to get paid after night one, just to, like you said, to keep the vibes rolling, was great to see. And I've always been a big Verhaeghe guy. He's a former Niagara Ice Dog. I watched him play in his rookie year and was
Leafs
impressed
pick.
with him. Yeah, he was a Leafs pick. He was an Ice Dog. There's a lot of ties there to Verhaeghe. I'm happy and glad that he's succeeding and is finally getting rewarded for the fruits of the labor, because it's a good perseverance story. It took him a long time to work his way into the NHL, into an everyday role in the league. And he's here, man, and he's been good for a couple of years. So it's nice to see him finally get rewarded with a big fat contract.
Very much an aside, but do you think he has a chance to make Team Canada at the Four Nations? Like, he's that talented, and he's on an absolute heater right now.
Possibly. Like, I think that he's not in the conversation. I think he's definitely one of the guys that you're going to sit there. You're looking at the bottom end of the roster, and you're like, all right, do we need another goal scorer? Do we need another playmaker? If so, his name will pop up. But I guess it'll just depend on what roles you're looking to fill toward the bottom end of your roster.
76 goals in his last 157 games.
Not bad.
Amazing. He had a 42-goal campaign, followed it up with 34 last year, 73 and 72 points, respectively. And, yeah, the Florida Panthers, man, I put them number one in the Atlantic. And, I mean, they've got to be the favorite for the President's Trophy right now, too. Just the way that they're rolling. Bobrovsky looked great last night. And, look, they had a lot of guys leave, a lot of depth pieces leave, and that's the price of winning, where guys are going to go and sign their tickets elsewhere. But
and Montour, and still able to put up 6 goals without a puck-moving D-man on the back end.
And they played more than half the game. They played the last 2 periods with 5 defensemen after Bachvis went down.
Yeah.
And look, Nate Schmidt was a healthy scratch. He'll be in the lineup. He's a nice depth piece too. Like, they're rolling, and it all starts at the top. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk was under the skin of the Boston Bruins, an extension of last year's playoff. I thought Pasternak and he were going to have round 2 at one point.
Would have been nice. Would have been nice to see that.
I think
happen.
Matty Tkachuk would have preferred that than Nikita Zadorov, who was trying to get him to go.
Yeah, probably. Sammy Bennett came in. He was like, I don't think so. You want to pick on someone, come pick on me, pal.
What'd you think of Sam Bennett running over Korpisalo after the 5th or 6th goal?
That's Sam Bennett. Like, that's Sam Bennett in a nutshell, man.
They're going to be tough to beat. So for more on that, go check out Locked On Florida Panthers. Armando Velez was in the building. He looked so sharp. He had the suit going. This guy is an absolute professional. Somebody get this man a Stanley Cup ring. Am I right?
Actually, though, like, I mean, the guy's been doing a great job covering the team for 2 years, man. And, they were using his clips up here on Sportsnet. He was doing interviews with Maurice's kid, and
Ron McLean was
talking about him. So yeah, dude, like, he's doing good work down there in Florida.
That's awesome. And for Ian McLaren and Locked On Bruins, look, Swayman signed. That's your big takeaway from night one. Yeah. Swayman will be in the lineup, you got to think, when they take on the Montreal Canadiens tonight, right? Or no, tomorrow? Are they
tomorrow, because the Leafs got the Canadiens tonight.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Tomorrow night in Boston, Canadiens, Bruins. That will be game 2 of the season. And You got to think game one. Were you a bit surprised that they didn't put Swayman in for the third period, almost as like a preseason game for him? Or it's like you've been sitting for so long, it just doesn't make sense to risk injury?
Yeah, that's probably where I'm at. Like, let's not risk that, because then all of a sudden, if he goes in and he's got I don't even know how many practices the guy's had on the ice to
One.
one practice. So like, is he even in shape? So if he tries to, you can't replicate game speed either. And the way that Florida was peppering Boston too, I don't know if you'd want to rush him into something like that. So I probably would have done the same.
These were the only two Eastern Conference teams playing last night. We do have to give some stick taps to Dylan Guenther.
Yep.
Another everywhere on the timeline, just like the Swayman should have held out. What's the answer to the trivia question? The first goal in Utah Hockey Club history. The answer is the same as the last goal in the 2023 World Juniors gold medal game. Dylan Guenther, this kid, a lot of people raised eyebrows when he signed his big ticket, only 78 games played, and he signed an enormous ticket, I think $7 million over 8 years per season. This kid can shoot, and he's going to be an absolute player for Utah.
No, I agree. I think he's gonna fill the net a lot this year. They're gonna be hearing Dylan Guenther's name a lot in Utah. It was very fitting for him to score the first goal too, because he's gonna be their leading goal scorer for many years. They paid him and are gambling that he's going to be that. He had a big back half of last season, and picking up right where he left off. Gunther's a sniper. He showed it last night, and dude, Utah looked pretty good. I like what they're doing. I know they're out in the West, and we don't talk about the West a whole lot here on the Eastern show, but Utah could be a player when it comes to playoff time this upcoming season.
I got them just on the outside going in. For more, Robin Lano has you covered. Locked On Utah HC. On the other side, we'll get into tonight's slate of games. We've got an awesome original six matchup. The Habs and Leaf kick off the season, and Mikey's got a great Austin Matthews stat for you. We'll get to that next, and then let me revel in some good news for my Ottawa Senators. Linus Ullmark signs a 4-year contract extension the day before the regular season. That's all coming up next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. If you need last-minute tickets, you want them at the lowest prices, of course, well, get to Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time. I would recommend toggling on the all-in pricing. That way, everything's up front. No hidden costs. I'm actually going to Ottawa later today, and we bought dozen tickets. My whole family's going, 12 tickets. We got them on Game Time. The price was very low. Even my family's like, wait, are you covering some of the cost of this? You only need me to send you this much? I was like, no, it's Game Time. Because I use the code LOCKEDONNHL, I also got $20 off. So if you go to Game Time, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Use it at the concessions and go have a great time with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. What time is it? It's Game Time. All right, Mikey, back for segment 2, Locked On NHL. The season is here. New Jersey Devils already with 2 wins over in Europe, and now in North America, the regular season is underway. And tonight, we've got a great slate of games, 2 Eastern Conference games to discuss. The New York Rangers will be in Pittsburgh to take on the Penguins, and the Montreal Canadiens will open their season against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's quickly touch on the Rangers-Pens game first, because I know you got some great insight as the host of Locked On Maple Leafs for that Leafs-Habs game. What are your thoughts on this one and the outlooks for both the Penguins and the Rangers?
Well, I mean, I don't have much faith that the Penguins are going to be, cup contenders this year by any stretch of the imagination. I think they'll probably battle for, one of those wild card spots. Like, they still have Sidney Crosby, and as long as he's on that team, he's going to pull them into being a competitive squad. But ultimately, I'm not expecting a whole lot. I do. Is this in New York or Pittsburgh, by the way? This game, I can't remember.
It's in Pittsburgh.
It's in Pittsburgh. I think the New York Rangers going to play spoiler for Pittsburgh's home opener here, and I think the story right now in New York is Shesterkin turning down that big time contract. I mean, if you're turning down 11 schmil, that's 88 million reasons why to sign an extension in New York. You better back it up with some absolutely all-star, all-pro, number one in the world goalie level performances this upcoming season. I think he'll be heavily motivated to prove that he's worth more than 11 million a year, apparently, and I think he gets it done and starts right away. Night one, big night from Shesty.
And it sounds like Erik Karlsson will be available. He's been dealing with a little something over the preseason. And look, say what you want about his defensive game as he's aged, but Erik Karlsson is still worth the price of admission every time he steps out on the ice. Even last season, his first in Pittsburgh, finishes with 56 points in 82 games. So I'm going to be interested to see that power play unit that was surprisingly average last year, right?
Average? It was brutal. It was like the worst in the league. It was like 12%. Don't be nice. When someone is brutal, you call them out on being brutal. It's called accountability, Ross. And us as trained, seasoned professional journalists have to hold these guys accountable. And that power play cannot be as abysmal as it was a year ago, or they're going to have the same fate. They're going to be hitting 18 holes a day starting April.
That's very fair to say. Last year, we've got it right up here. The Pittsburgh Penguins were 30th in the National Hockey League.
It was like 14%, 12%, something like that.
15.3.
They must have had a couple at the end of the year there.
Just ahead of Columbus and Philadelphia. That's it.
Stick taps.
Team with a great power play. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they were 7th in the National Hockey League last year. What are your thoughts on the game tonight? Is it a must-win game for the Leafs? Are they feeling the pressure, Mikey?
It's not must win, obviously. Opening night's always it's always a treat. But look, I think that it's going to be an interesting season, right? They got a brand new head coach in Craig Berube. Matthews now has the captaincy, so I think it's going to be a bit of a different vibe going into the game. But I expect for the Leafs to show up. I really do. Austin Matthews, you talk about how I got some tremendous information for y'all. This dude does nothing but score on opening night. 7 times has he played on opening night. He missed one with an injury. So 7 times he's played the opening night game for the Maple Leafs. He's got 12 goals.
Well, I remember one of them. I remember one particular overtime loss that he had.
Oh, you just had to mention the time.
Hey, he's in the photo, too. He's in the photo of that shot. He's trying to back check. But yeah, 4 goals. That's absolutely sick. Hey, it's not often that the goalie who allows 4 goals goes and asks for an autographed stick after the game. Craig Anderson got one for his kids. And I don't know if you remember this. Matthew said, "Thanks for the memories," with the number 4 signed on the stick. Funny. That's pretty cool.
That's so funny. But yeah, 4-goal performance, his first night in the NHL. And then had a hat trick last year against the Montreal Canadiens in the opening night. So, Austin Matthews, he is Mr. Opening Night. 12 goals in 7 games. I like for him to fill the score sheet again tonight. I know FanDuel's got it. I think it's plus 125 for him to go over 1.5 points tonight. So I like Matthews big tonight. And I think that the conversation that's being had in Leafland right now, though, is really with the goaltenders. I don't know if you saw the news about an hour or so ago. It was reported that Anthony Stolarz is starting this game, not Joseph Woll, because Joseph Woll has a little bit of lower body tightness. The injury bug hitting him already. So you can only imagine what Leafs Twitter is all about right now, Ross.
I've been a little more focused on other goalie news this morning.
Oh, did you not see that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
That's tough. Last thing I saw from Joseph Woll was such a heartwarming moment where a reporter asked him if Dallas and Toronto could meet in the finals. And he's like, yeah. But he has a relationship with Jake Ottinger. Right. They were trying to get to that, but he was so confused. It was a very wholesome moment, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, I was at the game last year where he got the high ankle sprain in Ottawa in early December, and that derailed what was an awesome start to the season. And I see Joseph Woll as a really good goalie in the league. Now, this is why you went out and got Stolarz, right? He was right there with Brossoit, the best backup goalies in the league last year. So he's a big body. He's got the experience. He won a cup, although he sat on the bench the whole time.
Yeah. What was the word? You used a specific word there, a descriptive word there.
Backup.
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue. And look, he could end up playing 40 games and he'll be fine. Like, split it. Maybe it's a tandem situation going into the year. Probably will end up being that. I'm not worried about it tonight, but I am concerned because that was a massive concern all offseason, all summer is Joseph Woll. Can he stay healthy, right? Guy missed game 7. Came up, with a back tweak at the end of game 6 and was unable to play in game 7 for the Maple Leafs. And all of a sudden, fast forward a couple of months, the day before he's experiencing lower body tightness and going to have to pull shoot. It doesn't smell right. That's all I'm saying. So long term, it's not a good feeling for Leaf fans with the whole Joseph Woll and his health situation. And it just definitely some red flags to start the year with that.
And we will continue to track that throughout on Locked On Maple Leafs, where you can find Mike DiStefano and his co-host David Morassutti. On the other side, it's time for me to have my moment in the sun. Linus Ullmark re-signs with the Ottawa Senators. That's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NHL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your live bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I already gave you one that I like tonight on FanDuel, paying plus 125 for Matthews to go over 1.5 points tonight. He is
I've got one for you.
Opener king. What do you like?
Canadian team to win the cup, plus 290.
Oh, you're looking at a big-time futures play there. I'm assuming you like the Edmonton Oilers when it comes
and
to
the Vancouver Canucks.
Both teams. All right. So you got a futures play and you got one for tonight as well. You throw down $5 on either of those. You'll get yourself $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You can make those wagers over on FanDuel.com. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Network.
Welcome back, Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me over at Locked On Ottawa Senators, where the channel is buzzing today with the news that Linus Ullmark has signed a 4-year, $33 million contract with the team. I'm alongside Mike DiStefano, and I'd like the outsider's perspective. When you see the nation's capital, they trade, they give up the first-round pick and Joonas Korpisalo in there, and Mark Kastelic as well, and they are able to lock up their guy. What do you think about the contract and the timing of it?
I mean, I think it's I like the deal if it works out, I guess. I feel like I would have waited a little bit longer. Like, you thought that Korpisalo was the answer to the problems, and obviously that didn't turn out to be the case. I would have waited to see what it looked like in front of Ottawa's defense before I splurged and spent, what is it, $825 over 4 years?
Exact same amount of money as Swayman. But 4 years less.
Yeah. So,
and he's 4 years older.
I feel like I would have probably waited, to be quite honest with you, just to see what it looks like. I get it. One, to lock him up, and now you've got your goalie of the future locked up, your goalie of the now and the future. You've got most of your core locked up, and you're ready to go. But you thought that twice before with Matt Murray, and again with Joonas Korpisalo. So it's like, you're going to go down this train again, eh?
4 and 5 year contracts there with Matt Murray and Joonas Korpisalo. Now, the difference is the resume, obviously. Like, Matt Murray had already fallen off a cliff before getting traded. Otherwise, Pittsburgh wouldn't have moved him. Then he had 2 years under. He had 2 years under 900 save percentage.
Well, it's honestly the exact same situation from Pittsburgh than it was here in Boston. Like, they had 2 goalies and they had to pick one. They had to trade one, right? So they traded Matt Murray, and same thing. I mean, why would they have traded Linus Ullmark? Is it because he's a bad player? I can use the exact same argument.
Well. Right? Murray had an .899 save percentage the year before, and Ullmark had a .918 last year. And over the last 2 years, he's got a .927.
Your argument that why would they have traded him is not really a sound.
I think age plays a role into it, and Swayman's a stud. I think Swayman's a better goalie than Ullmark, but I also think
Jari was a stud too.
That's fair, but I'm talking from the Senators' perspective of giving guys term.
Yeah.
I think that this is the best bet they've made. The guy won the Vezina 2 years ago. And if you look at the advanced analytics, hey, you're a stats guy.
Yeah.
The Senators had less expected goals last year than the Bruins. The Senators, though, had a minus 33 goals saved above expected, and the Bruins were plus 20.
Corpy was terrible. There's no.
And so was Forsberg. They had matching 890 save percentages.
They both.
Like that. They sunk the ship. They sunk the ship. And here's what I'll say from the Senators' perspective. Steve Stamkos, to me, gets a lot of credit because he didn't negotiate through the media. Even as recently as yesterday, said, all we want is for Ullmark to feel comfortable with us and in the city. I think that what you're getting with the Ottawa Senators here is a goalie that has confidence. He's a leader. You look at him off the ice, and I didn't really know much about him before he got to Ottawa. I watched the documentary they did about him on Sportsnet, and he's just a very he's a leader. And Ottawa hasn't had that in the crease. Matt Murray couldn't stay healthy, and Linus Ullmark couldn't stop a beach ball. I think this is the best bet they've made, and you're sending a message to the rest of the team too. And final thought on it. This is a third straight year they've given up a first-round pick for a player who is going into the final year of their contract. DeBrincat ends up getting traded. Chychrun ends up getting traded. And those were distractions all year long. You put the pin in that. You've got your guy for better or worse. I know it's preseason. The guy had a 930 save percentage in 2.5 games. He is an elite goalie in the National Hockey League, and his name's on the Vezina Trophy. So for me, I think Sens fans in general are extremely excited, and now he's got to go out and prove it. There's no doubt about that, but he's got the attitude. You heard the clip yesterday where my guy Bruce Garriock asked him if he felt like they'd accomplished everything they needed to in preseason, and he laughed at him. He said, we haven't accomplished anything. And something the Sens have tried to do is get players from winning organizations to bring a better culture to a team that's lost 7 years in a row. So I like the bet.
No, like it is a bet though, right? Like that's
everything is.
It's a bet, and it's a bet that they've made multiple times and lost on, right?
True.
Like that.
Hey, you only lose when you get up from the table.
Yep, that's true. That's true. And I would imagine if we fast forward to Locked On Senators back when the Murray deal happened, you were saying the same thing. Oh, they paid him. He's the goal of the future. This feels great. Blah, blah, blah. He's won a cup. He's young. And last year when they signed Korpisalo, I know that you were somewhat excited about that signing as well. Finally finding a goaltender. He should be okay. Get this team. And both times it blew up in their face. It may not happen this time. I agree with you that this is a more sure bet. There's definitely a better resume behind Linus Ullmark. But I still, there's a small possibility that it just couldn't work. And it's, again, like the third time that they've gone down this road. I might have wanted to see what it looked like in the regular season before making that bet, I suppose, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, so you're basically saying that you don't feel like if he had even played at an elite level that the price would have gone up.
Yeah, well, what could it have gone up to?
Well, Shesterkin, we can touch on that quickly. This guy's turning down 11 sheets.
Yeah, but I don't see Ullmark in the Shesterkin camp.
Well, only one. Yeah, you're right. Only one of them has their name on the Vezina Trophy.
Shesterkin has won a Vezina?
Maybe.
There's no chance. He almost won the Hart Trophy the 1 year. There's no chance he didn't win the Vezina that season.
It sounded good, though, didn't it? Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He won it 3 years ago. And then 2 years ago was Linus Ullmark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn, that sounded so good, though.
Well, it was.
Hey, don't let facts get in the way of a good take.
But like, to go back to Shesterkin, I guess, this is wild to me to be turning down $88 million contract. And then I guess he just wants to be the highest paid player in New York. Panarin's making $11.6 a year. He wants to be paid more than that because he feels he's the best player, therefore should be paid as such. I don't know. Like, where do you sit on this debate? Like, for me, like, Panarin's expected to play all 82 games, right? Yep. He's going to give you 82 games worth of play. Shesterkin's only going to give you like 60. Like,
well, I think it tells you a lot that
maybe.
I think it tells you a lot that Carey Price is still the highest contract for a goalie, and he signed it 6 years ago, right? Like, general managers just don't think that that's a way to win. However, last year, a $10 million goalie, the only other one, Sergei Bobrovsky, won the cup. So goaltending is voodoo. That's what it is. You don't know. Yeah. Like, I love Shesterkin. Didn't he lose his starting job for a bit last year for Jonathan Quick?
Yeah, I mean, the first 3 months of the season, Yeah, I don't think he lost the job, but like
He
he was
wasn't getting the
losing
majority
starts.
of starts.
He
Yeah.
was losing starts for sure. Like he wasn't the clear cut number one playing, 8 out of 10 games type of starter. It was more of a split there. And then he had a great back half of last season and got back to being, arguably the best goalie in the world. And he wants to be paid as such. And I get it. I just don't know if I could stomach, if I'm a general manager, paying a goaltender 11, $12 million just because they don't play every night. Like you look at like just how you have to divvy up the cap. I don't know. And I get it. Goalies are important and could be the backbone. I mean, it's arguably the most important position on the ice. Like you could argue. So I
Second
guess
most important position in sports behind a quarterback.
possibly, right? You could easily make that argument. So, like, should they be paid based on that importance? When you're the best at your craft, maybe. But when you are only available for 75% of the games, I think you should only get about 75% of the money. That's just how I feel. I don't know. It sounds like GMs agree with that logic based on contracts that we've seen over the course of NHL history.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you there. So I think it's time will tell, right? For all goaltending contracts as it stands right now, the contract that Linus Ullmark signed, we should also note it kicks in after this upcoming season. So then you take into account the cap going up a little bit. He's making $5 million or $6 million rather this season. I think it's 5 actually. This season, and
5.
that will tie him with Swayman for the 6th highest paid goalie in the league, 5th if you don't count Carey Price. So that's kind of, and then after that, it goes all the way down to 6.4 with John Gibson. So there's a clear upper echelon in salaries in goaltending in the NHL.
Well, really quickly, how about Joey Decord signing
Woo,
$5 million
my
a
guy
year?
sends draft picks, 7th round pick. I love this story. I think it's kind of curious with Philip Grubauer still signed for 3 more years, but he's a gamer. Like I trust Joey Decord to live up to that contract. But again, it's another big bet.
Yeah, what's interesting though is like it's not as though Decord, like maybe he's their number one. Like this is a true tandem, I think. And to be paying both your tandem goaltenders, like I think Grubauer's making what, 6 something? I think like
5.9, I think.
5.9. All right, so you're paying like basically almost 12 million combined for these two goaltenders, which is, I don't know, it's an interesting way to go about it, I suppose. But to be paying one goalie 5.9, to be paying another 5 million a night, one of them is going to be sitting on the bench. So you're going to either have a $5 million goaltender or a $5.9 million goaltender on your bench each night. It just seems, I don't know, kind of counterproductive to me. But we'll see. Maybe
Yeah, I'm excited to see. Look, this is kind of curious how all these contracts are coming right before the season. Verhaeghe, Ullmark, Decord, right?
Yeah, no Marner. No Tavares, no Jake McCabe.
Although, didn't Darren Dreger just report that Tavares is having extension conversations?
Oh, there's conversations that are ongoing,
right,
but nothing's happened yet with any of the Maple Leafs. That's a lie, actually. Cade Weber signed an extension.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah.
Let's give our Eastern Conference final picks. How about that? Let's wrap up the show with that. And you can give me your cup pick too, but I mean, this is the Eastern Conference show. So who's your Eastern Conference final?
Devils, Panthers. That's how I see it coming out.
Well, now I'm going to have to pivot because I was going to say the exact same, and we can't do that for the betterment of the show.
You can't possibly. You're going to do it again for a 3rd year in a row, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Rangers, Cats.
Panthers.
Rangers, Cats.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's what I see it. Sneaky though. A lot of people are down on Carolina. I just feel like maybe this hate will help motivate them, but I don't know if their window's closing. They lost a lot of talent.
A lot, dude. Like Shea,
Pesci. Like that's an elite pair right there.
Like that, exactly. Those
Burns is another year older.
Burns a year older. Slavin's a year older. They lost Teravainen. They lost
big loss too.
A bunch of dudes. There's a couple
more.
Gensel, exactly. Like they lost a couple of players. I still think they're a playoff team. Don't get me wrong, but they're certainly not as good as they've been the last couple of years. And for whatever reason, they just can't get it done in the postseason either. Can't get over the hump, at least. They're winning rounds, which is more than a Leaf fan could say. But they can't seem to get over that hump and get themselves into the dance.
I appreciate that, and I hope you appreciate that I'm about to be so boring. Edmonton Oilers are going to win the cup.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did you see the Sportsnet, all their predictions? It was like 15 out of 20 said the Oilers.
Yeah. I got Oilers over Devils in 6 games. That's my preseason prediction.
Okay. All right. Love it. That's Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. Go like, subscribe, comment on their show as well. You can go check out our breakdown on Linus Ullmark signing his extension over at Locked On Senators. I got to go pack my bag. I'm heading to Ottawa for the home opener. Can't wait to be there. Hockey is all the way back. So make sure you're liking, subscribing to every Locked On NHL podcast. We have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen of the day. For Mike DiStefano, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.